Hi, welcome back to Event Ready Podcast, where we talk about a roller coaster ride of being a live event artist.
If you're a painter, calligrapher, or illustrator, this podcast is for you because we're about to uncover the secrets, the stories, and the struggles of the industry. I'm your host, Michelle.
And I'm Talisa, and we have Isabel back with us for part two of illustration episode.
Yay! Part two. Who's ready? Oh, it's gonna be good.
Okay, so speaking of like high volume and stuff, how do you guys cope with the stress of working fast? And do people get upset like if it doesn't look like them?
I don't think they get upset. I think I've only had like someone who's like, "Can you make my jaw slimmer?" And I just made it slimmer. That's probably the only time where it's like I had to do a change. They're not gonna be like super upset and like throwing tantrum or anything, but it is very stressful though. Uh, to
Yeah,
draw a lot nonstop.
yeah. I think I think working fast, yes, I agree with that. Working fast is not the stress, it's the volume. So if it's like one after another and like go, 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 nonstop, that's what the stress is. Because I'm like, I'll forget to drink a sip of water. I don't have time to do a quick like arm stretch. Like these are the things that are the stressors for me. But answering the like people being upset about how they look, it's not so much that's the feedback that I've got, but I have had times where people were maybe surprised that it was so simplified, maybe. Even though like let's say I had like a sample out or two, but they just didn't expect like, oh, like it was gonna be so quick and so simplified. They're like, oh, they don't personally feel like it looks like them because I've left out a lot of things. I'm doing a sketch
Yeah.
in 5 minutes, right?
Mm.
But nobody's like blown a gasket or anything and been upset. But they're like, oh, like this is nice. Like, oh, you got my pants, but like, oh, I don't know if my hair looks like that. Or like sometimes they're like small comments like that. But so realistically, like, yes, like not everyone's gonna love your thing. Not everyone's gonna love your work. And for the most part, people will be astonished that like, oh my God, like you drew me and just, oh my God, that was so fast. Like, this is so gorgeous. I'm gonna put it on my wall. Like, I'm gonna look at it every day. But there will be people who are just kind of like, eh. So
Yeah.
the way I deal with that is just like, next. Like, you have to
Goodbye.
just goodbye. Like, I need to just not spend any more energy. Like, it's already
Mm.
done. Like, sketch is done. Like, it's
Mhm.
moving on, right? I can't dwell on it. I can't spend any emotion on it. I no longer get offended. Um, but it really is like
Yeah.
nobody's freaking out about it, but sometimes people won't love it, and it's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. And then, I mean, the thing is that because it's so much, just like you have no time to dwell. And like literally, I think most like 99% of the people are like really happy about it. They
Yeah,
really be like, draw me like I'm one of your French girls. Not like, obviously with
yeah,
clothes on, but like, they're very excited about it. They love being drawn. It's like it makes them feel special,
for
right?
sure. They're
So
having their like little moment in the spotlight. Like that's how it feels, I think, to be drawn when they're sitting there. And sometimes they feel awkward, right? They're like, oh my God, like she's
like,
looking like
am I supposed to pose?
right, how am I supposed to pose? Like, oh, but like my shirt, like don't forget like these earrings or whatever.
Yeah.
And they either love it or they're just like, like I'm uncomfortable. But really, at the end of the day, they take that drawing and they're like, oh my God, like this is amazing. Like you've given them that time
Mhm.
to just be like the center of the attention.
Yeah.
Uh,
So
and
most
that's
of them are happy with it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure.
What was that face though?
What, me?
Yeah, you're like, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm just thinking of like, there's always gonna be the one person who's kind of like, and you're also
Ah,
like,
mhm.
I don't
Okay,
know how to
next.
do that. But next, like, we have to move on from this moment because I can't let you ruin my night either. So,
Yeah.
Right. But it's like that for all art that we do. I mean, I get that for calligraphy, get that for bottle painting and engraving. So it's no
yeah.
different.
Oh, for sure. And like, you know how we get, and maybe this is like a general live event thing where sometimes we get like forced a tip for like the little things that we do. And like for illustrations or like for a body or portrait illustration, that's the like highest by far forced tip I've ever gotten at a job where it was just like, where do I put it? Like hide it right away. But like the people who love it, like really love it. And they're like, oh, I can't let you leave until I put this bill in your hand. And like they are like
So
so
grateful.
appreciative.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Why can't they all be like that? Okay. So we went through the challenges.
Mhm.
There's a question about marketing.
Mhm.
So someone asked, how do you get a live event job? And this is something that we talked about in our first episode, right, Talisa?
Yeah. I think we've already covered that
Okay.
details, but we are probably gonna get into more details of the
Mhm.
how in the future episodes. But we did touch on the different ways of how you can land those jobs on our first episode.
Mhm. And then the second part too is how do you reach out to brands? Do you reach out to them or do you attract them in the first place? Um,
Did you say trap them?
attract attract or it could trap them. I don't know.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're trapped. I don't know.
Yes. I don't know.
I
Yeah.
will say this though, because all three of us are like we entered this market as first as a calligrapher.
Mm.
And basically the same thing that we did when it comes to engraving and bottle painting. We just kind of like let our client know, hey, I also do these services.
Yeah.
Same thing with illustration. Um, we told them like, hey, we also do this. But there are also some other clients that I had that I've never worked before and reach out to us specifically for fashion illustration. It's just more of like, getting that website and everything. Like everything that we covered on the first episode, um, it just it's applicable to fashion, to illustration as well.
Mhm.
Mm, okay. Yeah, we'll get more into that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Someone else asked, what agencies could you recommend to work with as an illustrator?
We don't have an agency.
I could tell you what agencies not to work with.
Ooh, the tea.
Oh, oh.
Yeah,
Hint,
we're
hint.
independent.
Mhm.
Hint,
Mm.
hint, season 2. No,
Yeah.
no agency.
No
I would
agency.
recommend generally not. Um, that's not to say I haven't worked with an agency before, but I am not represented by an agent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I understand where I think a lot of illustration are represented by
Mhm.
an agency. I feel like that's kind of like the norm, but I think because we already have our hands and feet are like wet in the industry through
Yeah.
calligraphy, we never need it. I was never represented, and I feel like a lot of the clients I've spoken with, they all prefer to work with the artist directly.
Mhm.
Mhm.
However, there are some brands who prefer to work with an agency because the contract that they have, or maybe they want some sort of consistency. I don't know. But I've actually spoken to I've maintained a lot of relationship with the clients, and then they all say that they prefer to know the artist directly.
Yeah.
It's just a better relationship.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think like um maybe and maybe I'm wrong about this, but this is kind of just like my speculation. And like for fashion illustrations, especially for fashion brands or like fashion houses, they've been doing this for a long time.
Yeah.
Um, like far more prevalent than our calligraphy community is aware of.
Mhm.
And that like a lot of those illustration agencies, like talent agencies, they maybe at some point in time, and maybe still do now, have like quite a bit of a hold on the talent that's out there, where to the point where like people do think they need an agency to survive or to obtain jobs. And while I think that might be true in certain markets, I think it's certainly possible to do without,
Oh
you
yeah.
know.
Mhm.
So
There's social media now. I don't think, I guess agencies back in the days is needed because there was no social media. Marketing was really hard to get, because of
yeah,
that networking. But now people can just find anyone directly through Google, through social media, TikTok or
yeah,
whatever.
for
It
sure.
just,
There's like a bit of a saying about agency, like agency, the word in general, that like agencies thrive on misinformation. Like that's the whole point. If there is a middleman that can survive in the industry, it's because everybody doesn't have all the information. Um, but like you said, with internet and social media, like it's possible for anyone to Google, I need an illustrator in Vancouver from New York. And a lot of my jobs come from New York.
yeah.
And it's like they can find you easily, drop of a
Hmm.
hat. Like they don't need to go through somebody to find somebody.
Yeah.
And if your portfolio is clear and updated, why wouldn't they? And if you're reputable, they can see you've been hired by other clients that they
Mhm.
trust, that they agree with. They have the information.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It seems like that's starting to become the norm now, where the brand would just hire the artist by themselves. And like you said, it was because of social media where people can just easily see your portfolio instead of having to, go through someone else to get to you. You have it all there for them already.
We will definitely have a episode specifically on that.
All right. Okay, so that was the marketing. Let's get on to pricing questions. And then keep in mind, these are all from the AMA. So
Mhm.
someone had asked, what hourly rate would you recommend for live illustration events?
Um,
I mean, you don't need to share the exact rate, maybe like a range. It's a really personal question, and
yeah, it
there's so
depends
many
on the
factors.
yeah, it depends on the location, the market, the level of skills, the perceived value. Um, I, I think okay, the way that I'm looking at it, it's because illustration is a lot harder than calligraphy. It's for sure higher than calligraphy or engraving because there's just a lot more. It's just a lot more stressful. There's a lot more variables. Like it's just a lot. And I think that's why I feel like it should be at least double your calligraphy rate. Um and if but then also there's also perceived value, like where your skills at. I don't know. I feel like this is a whole other topic that we probably gonna touch upon later in the future.
Mhm. There's
Maybe
so
we
many
can talk about
factors.
range depending on your location is.
Mhm.
You're looking at me.
I'm like, please
Uh,
jump in.
as it's hard. It's hard to say because I do price things differently too, depending on the type of event,
Hmm.
and different minimums. So like for like a live sketching session, like sitting only, I tried very hard not to do a job less than 1,500 total. That's kind of like the minimum I tend to work with. And whether that's for like 3 to 5 hours um or for like a wedding, I try to have like a minimum number of hours on site because I also don't want to show up to a wedding and do like 15 people, right?
Yeah.
So you're trying to build that in as like a package rate. It's high volume, it's high stress. You're trying to pay an assistant. So there's just like a little more that goes into it. But yeah, I would say it's double what you currently charge for other skills if you're already doing them. Um, but the contract minimum is very, like, to me, it's like more strict than the hourly range, because I want to do a job for more than that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're definitely gonna have a talk about the daily rate versus hourly rate in like the future pricing episode, the perceived
Yeah.
value. I feel like that's a whole other episode that we can't just cover. We're already like over time with this. Um,
We're like in our third, like part 3 now.
I know.
Mm.
Um,
Okay. Yeah,
This
we'll
what happens when you
come back.
invite me. Sorry.
It's a lot of information. It's great.
yeah.
Okay, so we'll circle back to this because there's just like too much to get into and like one
Yeah.
talk. This needs to be like a whole episode in itself.
Oh yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Um, someone asked the breakdown of a higher price point of live illustration versus engraving, tips for educating prospective clients, and advice to calligraphy artists adding to the service. That was a lot. That's
Oh God.
three
That's
That
questions
that's a whole
in
other
one.
that's
Okay,
a
we'll start with
whole
the first one.
episode.
It's obviously going to be more than engraving or calligraphy,
Yeah.
right? Like you guys just said, double your price. Um, the next one is tips for educating clients on why it's higher. Like,
Oh, okay. Maybe that can be addressed really quickly, because I don't think you should be educating clients on why it's higher. They should,
Yeah. No,
it's
you just
like
tell them.
it's a given.
Mhm.
Yeah, and this like kind of reminds me of like Aaron's episode
Mhm.
on charging confidently. Like, you don't have to explain your price to anybody. This
You
is the
don't have to
price.
justify.
mhm.
No, this Hermes bag costs 10K. No questions. That's just how much it costs. You've decided that price. That's what you're selling it for.
Take
No,
it or leave it.
don't explain it, because if you have to explain it, it's like you're trying to convince yourself too, you
Yeah,
know?
and that's a red flag. If they're asking like, why is it so expensive? It's a no. We are not working together.
You are no longer my
Um,
client. No. But no, yeah,
suddenly I'm booked.
it's true. Yeah,
Uh,
it is a client red flag for sure. Don't, yeah,
yeah.
definitely. If they can see the value in what you're doing, for sure. And then maybe I want to touch upon the specific phrase here, advice to calligraphy artists adding this as a new service. I want to say, like, a bit of a personal opinion is that calligraphy art translates in zero way to illustration. It has literally nothing to do with each other. Zero. The only thing that is a stretch to mention is like you have hand-eye coordination.
Mhm.
That's it. So that goes back to like the main thing is, like, you have to start with drawing, just
Mhm.
like calligraphy starts with like the most basic of basic things. Calligraphy doesn't get you anywhere. Calligraphy gets you calligraphy.
Mhm.
Maybe gets you to engraving. But you're learning something completely from scratch. So you have to
Mhm.
treat it as that.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's like the way that I see it, it's like, like musicians, like you can sing, but if you want to be able to sing and play guitar, it's like, well, you got to learn how to play guitar. And that's like the same thing. Like it's a completely different muscle memory, completely different like vibe. Everything is just different. The tools different. It's just you're starting from scratch. So like if you're adding a new service, make sure that you're at professional level before you actually do it. than just like, oh, I just took one class and now I'm ready to do it. That's not how it works. It's like you have to learn the basic, the foundational, all of that first before you jump and then wanting to chart the same way as someone who's doing it professionally.
Mhm.
Um, right? Like, are they undercutting? I'm like, I don't think, I mean, like, again, that's the perceived value, like, um, and it is very difficult to like juggle two different, I find it like challenging to juggle two different sets of skills where I'm doing calligraphy and illustration. It's like so different. Like if I'm not doing illustration for a month, I'm like, I'm gonna forget a little bit. So like I have to keep practicing even though I don't have anything booked.
Mhm.
Or training, I would say. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's a good point that you
Um,
mentioned.
yeah, because this person also asked that when so advice to calligraphy artists adding this as a new service bracket unknowingly undercutting other artists. Um, so if I'm understanding that correctly, it's saying, oh, calligraphers are adding this as a new service and then charging too low for it. So it's kind of like you just the advice for that is you're not adding just a new service. This isn't like an add-on. Yeah, it's not that you know calligraphy and you've learned a new tool to apply it with a drill. So now I know calligraphy, I learned a new tool to apply my calligraphy, and now I can engrave. That's a kind of an add-on. Illustration and drawing is from scratch. So go back to the day that you started calligraphy or even learned it, and you produced, ugly lettering for a year. That's the necessary work that you have to do in order to get to a point where you're professional, you're adding it as a new service. Um, I I think it's just not as innocent as like adding another menu item, like it's not just like, oh, here it is, I also make this dish now. Like it's not as simple as that.
I think
Mhm.
we just see you, we see both of you, and we're like, oh, there's like hope that all of us can do it too. But then we forget that you guys have years of experience. Like you were doing
Yeah,
illustration before you were doing calligraphy. So,
way longer,
mhm.
like decades.
Yeah, and that's funny because that's kind of on us.
Yeah. Like I see the thing is like when I wanted to add illustration, it's because okay, when I was start the calligraphy business, I'm like, I call it Rose in art because like, hey, what if one day I actually want to do art again? I want to like, illustration and draw portrait again. But I wasn't sure about the whole branding if it's gonna like confuse people in terms of my niche. And I'm like, oh, I'm like, I really miss drawing. And then I started doing it again, but it didn't mean that like I just start learning how to draw. Like I've been
Yeah,
doing that since I was like 8. Um, so like it's not like we just picked it up. Like we already
yeah.
know that way longer than calligraphy.
Yeah, speaking of like deciding on like your Instagram or your website,
Mhm.
or your business name, yeah, like a long, long time ago, like, um, I decided to change my account to just my name for the same reason. I was like, but I'm an artist. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
just a calligrapher. I know how to do, like, the calligraphy is something I learned in adulthood, like, well into my 20s. And art and drawing and painting is something that's like, that makes such a big part of me. Um, if I were to say like today I have to take something out of my life in terms of art, not like other things. But like if we're talking about like drawing the ability to like draw and paint or do calligraphy, like I would say take calligraphy. Like I want to keep drawing and painting, right? That's like that forms such a bigger part of me that it's funny that the Instagram community that I have built and come to know really like know me for that. And so when I started posting like drawing and painting, everyone's like, huh? Like, oh, you can do this. And it's like it came as like a bit of a shock or like day one, I was like, I posted an illustration, and maybe it was Talisa's drawing. I
I
don't
think I was your first muse.
and I posted that, and people were like, oh my God, that's so good. And I was like, this is literally like my first attempt at
Yeah.
fashion illustration. But it's because like I already know how to draw people. Like this is
Mhm.
not a that to me, no offense to Lisa, it's a beautiful drawing, but but like to me, it was like this was something it was within reach. Like I could make it. Like I'm not astonished that I could make that. It wasn't like something that I just like made out of thin air, right? It was like this
Yeah.
was within reach. It was just like a style or like a presentation of it. Like, for example, I used a liner to outline the drawing, which is something I never ever did before. But that's just like a style or a way to present that drawing. And whereas like I've always been painting, drawing things very realistically, that includes no fine lining of any kind. um and learning to like do drawings in that style was what we were trying to do. We were just practicing and training on how to present it differently,
Mhm.
not learning how to draw. We were not learning from scratch
Gotcha.
for how to draw. We were just trying to present it differently with a marker, with
Yeah.
different tools, to develop that style.
Mhm.
I like that you guys break that down. Like it makes it like you guys did have a foundation. And some of us have never drawn before. So it's kind of hard to understand that, you do have to go all the way back to like drawing the apple, understanding the light, the shadows, all of that's the shapes and all of those things before you can get into the actual body drawing, the fashion illustration. We forget that you guys have started there because we look at your work and we're like, oh, that's so like so beautiful, like highest level. And but right, we all started somewhere. But I mean, it doesn't have to take all those years, right? That you said decades ago.
Well, I mean, the decades, I mean, like that's because like I guess it's like our passion. We just love doing it. We just love drawing.
Mhm.
We didn't know that we are gonna be an artist, like a paid artist. But it
Definitely
doesn't
not. Oh my God.
no. Trust me.
By no
No Asian
chance.
parents would
No,
be okay.
I
No
can relate.
in
No.
hell. Oh my God. That's literally the first thing I said to my parent. The very first time I scored my very first event job, I was like, Mom, I'm gonna be a paid artist. And like I literally said that word for word. And I didn't mean that as like, oh my God, celebrate it with me. I meant it as like, I told you it was gonna happen.
No, exactly.
Uh,
But it doesn't mean that it would take decades. I'm not saying that it would take decades to pick up this skill. I'm
no.
just saying that there is a lot of hard work and a lot of training and practicing if you want to if you want to add, if you want to do illustration. But the question is, do you love it? Like, don't do it
Yeah.
because like it's a new added, service because it pays a lot more. If you do that, and you're gonna absolutely hate it because it's not easy. I'm gonna say that like flat out straight, be
Mhm.
honest, it's not easy as you think. If you think it's easy, then you're probably not doing it properly. And we want to make sure that we want to maintain good quality in this industry as a live event artist, right? So yeah, you absolutely have to love this. Like you have to love drawing, you have to love not just doing it for like the money.
So you can't
Mhm.
just fake it until you make it.
No, absolutely not. Because if you do that, yeah, you may get like two, three jobs, but then you're gonna you're gonna
Piss somebody off. Okay.
yeah, yeah, you're gonna
That's
put yourself in a bad you're giving yourself bad reputation. And
yeah.
like words go around and you don't want to get there. Like it's better to just like wait until like, for sure that you're ready.
And that's the thing. Like people are very polite with
Hmm.
feedback in person. The clients or like the staff that's there, they'll tell you all the things you want to hear, but you just never know what they're saying. behind your back to somebody else. It's just like it's incredible, obviously, like to have the opportunities that we've had. But I don't count it as a guaranteed thing by any means. Like we're lucky for every job that we get. But we
Mhm.
also we worked really hard to get here.
Mhm.
And it's really not easy. Like um when we say like, oh, we have decades under our belt, we're not like, it's not it's not a thing to say like, hey, like we're trying to keep people out of this business. No, like I just want it to be realistic that you need to a like love it, and b you have to practice it intentionally, and start from the right place and not jump to step 9 and 10 because you think that that's going to get you somewhere. Um, because I can say for sure, if you start from step 1 and you do all the right things and learn all the foundations and you finally get to that point, that's going to get you in such a better spot for the long term. Like imagine the possibilities with like the proper skill and like superior quality that you're going to be able to offer. You're not convincing people to hire you. You're not trying to justify your price. You're not trying to um knock on people's doors and like, hey, like I added this, I added that, I added a new service. No, you're just gonna post your amazing drawings, and then people are gonna be like, we need to hire this person, right? Like if you had that quality, you know you will attract
Yeah.
um people to your door.
Yeah, don't chase the bag, let the bag chase you.
I love that.
People, if they
Um,
want to hire you, they will hunt you down.
they will change the date, they will drop everything and then
They
make
will
sure that it
change
works
the
out.
date. They
They
will
will
drop
pitch for you.
other people.
Yep.
They're coming to get you. They're gonna ask. You don't even need to give out a business card. They will ask like when I was at a store, this was I think last year or like during the holiday time. There was somebody who didn't hire me once, who thought I was over their budget, which is fine. But I was drawing and they were in like earshot of my space, and they had to sort of like watch me the whole time that I was drawing in the store. Eventually, finally, they like came up and introduced themselves and was like, "Oh yeah, we've chatted before." I was like, "I know exactly who you are." um, and then now that they've like seen you in action, they're like, "Oh my God, like that's I would like that too." Um, they find you. They'll hunt you down. You don't need a QR code. They're gonna ask that person who knows that person who works in the store you're working at. Who's that girl? Like, can I get her name? Like, they're gonna find you.
They will.
So
And
I
that's the promise. That's like you get a lead. Like you
Mhm.
don't have to do anything. I agree
yeah.
with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just this that and that's what I like really mean by like we are honestly like not trying to keep anyone out of the business. We just want you to be at that level
Yeah.
rather than trying to compete and like fight for jobs. Like
Mhm.
no, like get to the point where people are asking for you.
Yes, that's like the quality that I'm hoping for this industry is like not just getting the leads, but also like getting rehired over and over again and getting told people about you, getting referred because it that's where it gets like, it's guaranteed that you're doing well, not just like one or two jobs and then you get bad reputations, right? Um
Mm,
and I rarely ever have to pitch. Um and I think it's because of because the quality that you're putting out there, you always, even if like, we have so many years of experience in drawing and whatnot, I still feel like there's so much that I need to improve. Like there's always
Yes,
Mhm.
something to
100%.
improve. Yeah.
Yeah. Like maybe you know how like um like consider like professional athletes or whatever. Like they're literally, a figure skater or a pro tennis player. They're freaking training every day.
Yeah.
They're
Mhm.
not sitting at home like, oh yeah, I was awesome last year, so I don't need to do anything anymore. No,
No,
like they're still
exactly.
like they're on the ice, they're on the court, they're constantly working at it to keep it up. And then hopefully during one of their practice sessions, they're like, oh man, I learned something new today. And they can still marginally and still get better and better no matter what, even if it's just to keep it up at the same level. But hopefully you're still making improvements. Like,
Mhm.
I love.
Yeah.
And they're not
That's
spending
why.
their time pitching and chasing other people. Like people, because they're practicing what they do, people are chasing them.
Mhm. And this is why I feel like I think when people say, "Oh, you're naturally talented," I'm like, I'm not naturally talented. I just love doing it. And the more that you do it, the better you're good at it. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
The talent is the unavoidable like urge to do more.
Yeah.
That's the talent. That's what you're born with. Like if you aren't born with like the will and like, oh my God, like I want to draw more. I want to do more. I want to get better. If you don't have that, then you won't. Like you just won't improve because you aren't working at it. Um like learning how to draw, when Michelle, you mentioned like the apple, I know you got that from me because I say that all the time. I'm like, if you can't accurately draw an apple with a pencil, that everything beyond that is not going to be as good as if you could draw an apple with a pencil, shade
Yeah.
it properly. Where is the shadow? Is it on this side? Is it on the table? Did you know that a shadow on the table can reflect back onto the apple? These
Mhm.
things like that, if you can do these first steps properly, everything else is so much better.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I feel like we're like onto the actionable advice kind of
Yeah, we kind of spilled
Oh
over.
phase
yeah.
now.
There
Spill over
was
it.
there was actually another question about
Oh, there's another
pricing.
question.
Oh my God.
It's kind of a long one. They ask a question and then give kind of a scenario.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
But they ask, what are your thoughts on ethical compensation rates, which like when a lead artist subcontracts additional artists for high volume events such as weddings. So in this case, the example was they declined working with an artist who wanted to team up for us to do the same amount of work, but they wanted to pay me as an assistant. So they wanted to pay them $600 for 4 hours, even though their base rate was 3 to 4 thousand. Um, so that was
I have
kind of the
thoughts.
situation on that. But yeah, love
It's
to.
unethical. That's all I can say. It's unethical. I think when you're coming into the space to do an art, you're not an assistant anymore.
Mhm.
You're the artist as well. Everybody has different style too. So like I would not take it. I'm sorry, I'm like super passionate about it because I hate anything that's being when someone is being unethical, like I'm so passionate about it. Like I hate injustices, unethical practices, and I feel like um yeah, that's I think I feel like that's kind of predatory and I wouldn't be okay with it.
Yeah. And, when she said, I declined working with this artist,
Mhm.
that was the right thing to do. But part of it is also like, maybe we should use the opportunity to educate this artist, right? Like, if you decline this opportunity, I would say, like, it's kind of important for you to, like, speak up about it too, to be like, mm, if I'm like, if I'm coming in to help you, it's kind of like, um, both of you, if the wedding couple wants to hire two people in order to double the capacity, right? Um, this artist, the first artist, needs the second artist to make this gig work. They need
Mhm.
each other,
Yeah.
right? So it's like one can't happen without the other. This job won't happen if two of them are not on board. So it's like almost by virtue, it should be equal share, right? So I may even encourage that this person can say, hey, like, no. And also, I think that that's unfair for you to offer to anyone else. Like,
Yeah.
uh,
Good luck finding someone.
bye.
Um, I mean, someone might say yes to that, but I'm pretty sure like the quality wouldn't be as good. They're probably gonna find someone who's like don't have that much experience, and then that's gonna like, have an impact on your reputation and your branding. So like, yeah, you do need each other. And I feel like every single artist, I subcontract sometimes for like engraving, and I don't pay them any lower. I like we like just split the cost and then that's
Yeah.
it. Subcontracting doesn't mean that you're an assistant. Like if you're an assistant, it would be someone who's like not doing what you're doing. It would be like someone who's like, like
Helping
maintain
with admin.
yeah, like the admin, controlling the crowd, not
Yeah.
the art. Like that's not an assistant anymore. Like you're another artist. So
Yeah.
I think if you want to talk about empowering other artists, then you should be fair in terms of compensating them.
Yes.
Mhm.
Because the subcontract there is just for administrative efficiency.
Mhm.
This client is only paying one person so that the one person can pay themselves and the other person. So there's not two contracts and two invoices. You're just saving
Yeah.
everybody the trouble.
Yeah.
But you're not taking this opportunity to take a cut. You're not taking this opportunity to take in this mathematical equation here way more than half a cut. Like that's crazy.
That's predatory
Mhm.
in a
Isabel,
way.
I remember you were talking about the friend assistant.
Yeah.
If they were just doing friend assistant stuff, like controlling the crowd, taking photos, like making sure that you're just able to do the work,
Yeah.
that's fine, where you can take a lower rate because, it's
Yeah.
just administrative. But
Yeah.
in this case, they wanted them to do like the same type of work. So that's like two illustrators.
Yeah,
No.
No.
that's absolutely insane. Somebody is doubling your capacity and you're offering them like nothing. That's that's not cool.
Yeah.
That's not cool.
No.
Uh,
So you did
And
the
I
right
just
thing.
and I just did the math on my phone right now. That person is offering their second artist what I pay an assistant. That's
yeah.
ridiculous. No.
Yeah.
So no.
Oh, yeah.
So you did the right thing, declining.
Hmm. Yeah. I think we should have to be like, stay on your ground when it comes to that. Like, you have to respect your art, your hard work,
Mhm.
all those hours that you practice, that you deserve the value that you get. So, and eventually that other artists learn. So
Mhm. Yeah.
they just need to be know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just need to know.
All right, let's get into the actionable advice.
Hmm.
Okay, we're here. So practicing versus
Yeah.
training. Let's talk about that. Practicing.
Yeah, I think we kind of like use the term a lot, but there's quite a difference between practicing and training. Like practicing will be like someone who's still learning the skill, like developing it. Like you're still like you don't know everything yet. So you're still kind of copying your teacher, copying the foundation, still kind of figuring out the tools. Whereas like training is more like you're at professional level. You're just doing it to maintain your muscle memory. And that's, I feel like that's where the difference is. If you're learning a new style, a new ways of doing things, new tools, then yeah, that's probably like kind of practicing, but like at a professional level, you're training. And I feel like that training needs to be done. Um, like frequently, even if you're not getting booked.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
goes back to what you guys were talking about earlier. Just like do it because you love it. Like
Yeah.
practice when you don't have events.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're kind of just like picking up your tools, and like sometimes you're discovering something new.
Yeah.
Sometimes you're just like trying to like up your skill level. Like sometimes I think I've posted it like a couple times where I was like, oh, I'm practicing doing sketches without pencil, right?
Hmm.
Like stuff like that. It's you're still trying to make minor improvements to your work. But you're no longer just like learning the basics. You're no longer practicing the basics. You're not practicing a pose from scratch. You're making sure that you still can perform at the level that you want to.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, there's a difference between the two.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, so we have a little bit more questions. Someone asked, how
We
do
have
you,
more questions.
yeah,
We got
there's
a
a,
lot of
We
questions,
got so many questions.
and we're actually like covering. This is probably like a part three, though.
I know,
Oh
right?
Part
dear.
two. I think we probably can do it part two. So this is a long episode, but
Talisa, you thought you were gonna go to bed on time.
yeah, it's past midnight in my time right
Oh my,
now. But I had my nap, so I was ready to cover all these questions for everybody, right? So,
yeah, we're spilling a lot of tea here.
Mhm.
Okay, so someone asked, how do you get started?
Oh, God. Dude, there's
Strap
like
in for
so
like
many
another hour.
I know, but there's like, I feel like illustrations, fashion illustration or portrait illustration, there are like endless free resources out there. Um, every teacher teaches different way, and I feel like the foundation is the same, like how to draw eyes and how to draw body and everything. But if you Google something on YouTube, you're gonna find tons of things. You can start from there. If you're more like a book person, there are tons of books. Um, there is no one way is better than the other. Like if you're looking into learning fashion illustration, you probably want to look at croquis. Like in like there's different ways, like 9 heads, 10 heads, or 12 heads. That's like the proportionality of how to draw bodies. So that's where you can start. And if you want to draw faces, I feel like there's just way too many. You can use like Domestika, Skillshare, free stuff on YouTube. Like I like it's like exhaustive, like the resources out there.
Exhaustive. That's a really good
Yeah.
word. There's so much stuff out there that you won't be able to not find something. Like it's insane. Um, but you know me, and I feel like I have to take the opportunity to talk about learning from not from fashion illustration as your first step.
Yeah.
Like if this is something you want to do and this is something you want to do for real and you can see yourself still doing this in 5-10 years, like do it the right way and learn to draw. Learn
Yes.
to draw first. This was like going back to, I don't know, 3 hours
E.T.
ago when I said it. Is to learn to draw first. And you don't have to do it in decades. Like don't get me wrong. You don't need 10 years to do this. You just need to do it in a much more condensed way than you and I did, Telisa. But um really learn to draw first. And if you want to draw, like focus on people, like don't you don't have to draw the apple, okay? But you have to draw a human body first, right? I don't care who it is, like a picture, magazines, like your partner, your friend, draw a human person and like learn the features, learn the proportions, like
Yeah.
shoulders go down, they don't go up, like just things like that. Like um you just can't get to fashion illustration until you know how to do a life drawing. Do a life drawing, you can already start by sketching like live bodies. Just do like circles and just like, oh, okay, here's the face, here's the body, how approximately how much bigger is the torso compared to the legs. These are all things you can like start figuring out already. And like you said, Skillshare, Domestika, like learning how to draw a human is possibly the most popular drawing topic. Like you will find anything you want in this realm. Learn how to do that. Learn how to do it really well. And then second is to add a medium. So learn whatever medium you want. Start with a marker, start with watercolor, figure that out. And like actually learn that medium. What are the tools that you use? A brush. How do you express color and shading? All that stuff. Everything that you already learned by pencil, you have to learn it in color. And once you can combine those two things and produce like a beautiful human body picture, now your only task, and this should be the fastest part of your journey, by the way, is to figure out how to cut that time down. And then like, oh, maybe I can leave this out. Maybe I can leave that out. How do I make this fast? How do I simplify that? That's the fun part. Like, this is the part where you find your style. This is the part how I found my style in illustrating, because it's like how my brain chose to simplify that process. Nobody else can do. It's how I chose to do it. That's how I illustrate now. And you have to go through the work. You have to go through the ugly work, and then to get to the beautiful work, to then go back to ugly because you're trying to make it fast. It's going to be ugly for a while until it gets good again. And that's the whole journey you need to make to then make the quality sketches.
Yeah. And yeah, you can't do like, yeah, you can't like switch up, do the 10 minutes and then go back. Like it just that you can't just skip a step. Right.
Yeah.
And because it is really complicated. But it like again, as long as you love it, if you love doing it, it shouldn't be it's fun. Like you would be enjoying the process.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Oh, you know what's a good story to tell? When I graduated high school and I wanted to go into fine arts,
Mhm.
and I like went behind my parents' back,
Mhm.
and I went to a design college, and I brought my portfolio in to get reviewed by a professor. And this was kind of like an open call, like anybody can come, like prospective students and whatever. And it was like quite a embarrassing moment for me. I showed like what I thought was like my best work, right? And he said, and I am not like stretching any truth here. This is exactly what he said. I'll never forget it. And he's like, well, you're very skillful, but I just don't see a point of view. And a lot of your work seems to be like referenced, meaning like I don't have like a voice or a cohesive, like anything that's mine. Like I have nothing original here. Which is true, because like I've always been like very skills focused. Like I want to draw this thing very accurately and realistically. But I'm always like so focused on the medium. I never got to the point where I was trying to do it like creatively or show off something that was just all me. And I feel like I found that when I was learning how to do illustrations, where like I was no longer doing like hyper realistic. I'm like, how do I make this fast? How do I make it creative? And it was through that like a year or two of figuring that out where like I found my style in doing that. So that like kind of took me back to that day. I was like, oh my God, like he totally nailed my problem. And
Oh
now
my.
I'm gonna go home and like
Mhm.
think about that.
I like that you got it reviewed by someone who is like expert level
Yeah.
and they gave a really good non-sugar coated opinion that like forced you to get better.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Mhm.
true. This was a person who's never seen my stuff before. I don't know him. He doesn't know me. He's a professor in an art college. He has no obligation to make anything sound nice. And of course he didn't. And that probably was like a really big favor to
Mhm.
me to be like, okay, like, yeah, great. Like you can draw. Now what? Right.
Yeah.
But it's like having that foundation was priceless because I already started at that point to be like, okay, now all I need to do is figure out my voice. Um, but learning how to draw was like to me, it's like just so essential to the process. It's just a step you just cannot, um, you can't skip because
Mhm.
illustration is your voice in how to do that quickly and communicate it to another person in a way that's like, wow, like this is really cool, like this is a work of art instead of like, okay, yes, you've drawn this object.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where it's like the true artist kind of like that's where it shows you're the true artist, like you showing your style, you're throwing your voice, um and that's what makes you you. It makes your work look like, oh, we know that it's Isabel's work.
Mhm.
And it's funny when you mentioned that story because I also had portfolio review as well. But it was
Mm,
for I can't remember if it was architecture or interior design, so it wasn't human form. It was like buildings and whatnot. And I
Yeah.
also had was asked like, were you there or was it from a picture? I'm like, it's from a picture. I didn't go to Italy.
Oh.
Um, but like, but then like but then that's when I was like, I started to like just be at like in front of building and I would like sketch. This is like my architectural, drawing phase. And I used to bring like my sketchbook everywhere just to draw what I see. And
Yeah.
and that actually takes like it's a really good practice to how you see things. And now it's transferred to like, live fashion illustration. It's like it's so much easier because like I've done it before. And for you've spent so many hours doing it. Now, I don't know if I actually have a style yet, to be honest. I feel like it's always developing, and I think that's okay to
Yeah.
develop your style, to change how you add color, how you
yes.
exaggerate the pose, how you use the color. Like it's that's where people will see how you grow up. I'm
Yeah.
like I just like experimenting, like different ways of painting and then they like and they appreciate that. So I feel like there's like that flexibility. And my illustration has completely changed too since like 2 years ago to now.
It's evolving. It's not
Yeah,
changing. It's
yeah.
evolving.
Yes,
That's the thing.
it's evolving. There you go.
It's like you're altering and like little things are morphing. It's like from like 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, like these little points are small, but when you
Hmm.
look back all the way back to day one, you're like,
Hmm.
wow, like things are dramatically different.
Yeah.
But that change didn't happen overnight. You're just like
Yeah.
tweaking little things here and there. um and maybe like certain lines have gotten better. Like you've gotten better at drawing like hoodies, like that used to be a really big challenge or whatever it is. Like things
Hmm.
are always going to be changing and evolving. um but yeah, like or like, oh, poses, right? Like maybe when we first started, like we were only comfortable drawing like
Would one pose.
one or two that you could like call off like right away, like okay, confidently, like this is what I've got and laid out my paper. But now it's like, okay, well, you're sketching like 50 people, like you're not going to draw the same pose over and over again. You're
Hmm.
trying to show range, you're trying to show creativity. You're going to switch things up, but can you be confident in doing that?
Hmm.
Right. Or are you going to stick to that one pose, kind of like cookie cutter template, where like if that's all you're comfortable doing, it's like get better, do more,
Yeah.
learn more, practice more, to the point where like you can really do it on site under pressure, and you can be like, oh, I know how this arm moves that way, I can pose it this way. Or what if like the legs go outwards or inwards? What do the shoes look like when you do that?
Mhm.
These things are going to get better over time.
Yeah.
We're always evolving.
Yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
because you understand the basic foundation. So you can, once you have that training, you can be like, I can draw pretty much anything from here. It's the same principles of art. It's still the same
Yeah.
shape. It's all shapes, colors, shadows, depth.
Yeah.
You use that
Um,
same skill and apply it to a different item. Like Isabel, you go from the apple to now the shoe.
You just reminded me of something so good, because there was one party that I did during the holidays where there was a live guitarist, and he was like, "Oh, can you sketch me?" I was like, "Sure." And then I was like, "But he's wearing a fucking guitar. I've never drawn a guitar in my life, right?" And I'm like, okay, here we go, I guess, right? So you're like, and by the way, like it might look simple, but anytime there's a human interacting with another human, like their bodies are intertwined somehow,
Mhm.
um, like if they're holding hands, or one's leaning on another, or they're holding an object, anytime there's some interaction between the human body and another thing or another person, the complication is like exponential,
Oh,
because
yeah.
the angle, if one arm's angled wrong, the other arm is not meeting it at the right place. Or like two people are standing next to each other, and one's taller and one's shorter, and like their body proportions and all that stuff, like it just instantly gets super complicated. It's way harder than it appears. So holding a guitar, okay, and Talisa, you're a musician, you know, two hands, one instrument, one belt. That's
Mhm.
like 5 points of contact now you have to worry about, right? It's not just two arms hanging or touching a hip. Now it's like one's holding the guitar, and
Yeah.
one is strumming, one's higher and one's lower. And all these things come into play. And I sketched it in 5 minutes, and I was
Mhm.
like, I drew a guitar.
Oh.
I shocked myself a little bit, but I'm like, but Michelle, like you said it exactly. It's like it's the same principles. If you can master the basics, you will in fact be thrown like random things like a guitarist, and now you're sketching, and you're like, I can do this. I know that his elbow is below the guitar. He's holding it in this
Yeah.
angle in this way. And these things can be improvised and can be accurate, if you know what you're doing. Even though when I'm sketching, like, yes, I was sweating. It's okay. Um, but like the thing came out, I'm like, okay, that looks right. Oh, thank God.
Master artist can do anything.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is why like it's so much more complicated than calligraphy.
Mhm.
This is why the the perceived value is so much higher um than writing a simple name. And this is why we charge what we charge. And because all of that variables and combinations, it's like you don't know what you're being thrown at.
Mhm. Very complicated. That's why we have this in like three parts or two parts.
Yeah. But I do want to say when it
Truly.
comes to like picking up a new skill, if you can get a course where you can get feedback from a professional teacher, that's highly desirable, like better than figuring out yourself not knowing what it looks like. And when it comes to getting feedback, and make sure you're getting feedback from a professional, like someone who's done it. Like not like your mom, not like your husband or your wife, not your business coach, someone who has actually done it a lot with a lot of experience and honest. If you're willing to learn faster you want to get that feedback.
Mhm.
That's true. Yeah. Like you want to get the scary professor in the college who's going to tell
Yeah.
you like, okay, no, this is not good.
Mhm.
This is what you need to work on. And I
Yeah.
know like we're all very truly at the heart of it. This is kind of what this episode is doing, right? Like I feel like we're telling some hard truths here too.
Mhm.
Um and that's not meant to discourage anyone. It's meant to like encourage you to the right path, to be like, this is totally doable if you do it the right way. um and it can be a lot of fun if you love it. It can be amazing. um like when I was little, and I've shared this story probably a few times now. But like when I was little, I saw a live artist in a park doing portraits, like realistic portraits. And I'm like, Mom, I want to do that. And she was like, over my dead body. Um, but yeah, like I was like, this is what I want to do. And of course, like we all had like dreams of what we wanted to do. Like, I want to be a firefighter, I want to be a whatever, right? Like we've all named the things. And I'm not gonna go as far as to say that has always been my dream, but to be able to like come full circle and do something that like I actually love doing, and then doing it live and like having um that entertainment factor, and having somebody like take that artwork from you and just being like absolutely floored by it. It can be like so rewarding. Um
Mhm.
so rewarding, but it just comes with hard work if you
Oh,
really want.
yes. You just have to love it. Like again, we keep saying over again, again, you have to love it.
Yeah.
Or you're gonna hate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That goes for everything we do, right?
Hmm.
All of our art skills.
Hmm.
It's not just another menu item.
It's
Mm-hmm.
not.
It's not like chocolate cake and also I offer strawberry shortcake. That's not, no.
It's not.
I feel like this was such a good finale.
Finale. Ooh,
Finale? What do you
Finale.
mean?
finale.
Well, Talisa.
Um, okay. I'm spilling the tea. Okay.
Yeah.
So, well, we have an announcement. This is actually the end of season one. And we're going to start second season on the next episode. And we have a exciting announcement because Isabel has been spilling so much tea and being super, super educating and entertaining within our episodes. Isabel's going to be joining us moving
Ooh,
forward.
yeah.
She's our permanent co-host. She's going to spill
I've
more
been
tea.
inducted into the pod team.
Yay. Cheers to that.
Yeah, we're so excited. So our second season is gonna be more in detail about a lot of things that you're curious about. Like, because the first season was like kind of like high level, touch upon like different kind of stuff, but we're gonna get into like even more teas that we've been, experiencing and we've been witnessing, observing, and we want to share all of that with you. And yeah.
I think it's really cool that like, people are trusting us with questions about the industry of live events.
Mhm.
And there's just like so many things that are unsaid. There's still so many things that are still mysterious. People who want to get in, or people who are already in but like not quite sure what's the right thing or the wrong thing. Um and we've just over the years have uncovered a lot of these things that we can
Mhm.
share with everybody. I just think it's so cool.
Yeah. It's all of
Mhm.
our experiences. here.
all maxed, yeah.
Yeah.
And we came from like different like, locations as well. And we're also gonna have some guest speakers as well on the second season. So it's gonna be lots of fun stuff.
Yeah. We already have so many things planned out already.
Yeah.
The group chat is annoyingly active.
Yeah.
Like all times of the day.
All times of the day, we have topics brewing, we have notes and messages being saved. We're like, this is a good topic, that's a good
Yeah.
topic. We gotta save this, we gotta save that. Like we have
Yeah.
so many
So
things
much.
that we
Yeah.
need to say, and that the community really needs for free.
Uh-huh.
Best
For
part.
free, man.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So this is it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode and listen to the whole season 1 of Event Ready Podcast. Please share some feedback. Let us know what you want to learn more about when it comes to live event artistry. And yeah, thank you again. And thank you, Isabel, for joining us
Thank you, Isabel.
for this
I'm
very
so
long episode.
We're gonna see more of you. Can't wait to see more.
All our episodes are going to be 3 hours long from now on because I'm here.
It's gonna be like part 1, part 2.
Yeah.
So sorry. I will try to keep it short.
All right. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And we will see you on season 2.
Hey.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Season 2.